You're listening to the Oddities podcast.
All right, how we doing?
So funny. It's so funny to listen to a podcast and then see what really goes on behind this.
Yeah, and we're amateurs, so on a real podcast, who knows?
You guys, this looks like legit.
It was expensive setup, but I just watched YouTube videos and read on how to do it because I had no idea.
Well, that's what Cooper always says.
There's
like a YouTube for everything.
There is. I tell people, don't buy it. Why are you paying? Why are you paying to like buy a plane ticket to travel to some conference? Like all the shit's free on the internet. Like,
and if it's not, it's like marginally expensive.
Yeah. Is there really some secret knowledge you're gonna learn at a conference that you can't just learn from your friends and people you know in books?
Yeah,
It's more about networking if you go to stuff like that. But it's kind of the model of like college I talk about all the time. Like we're way past the days where a certain select group of people held all the knowledge and you had to go to like a monastery or some school where monks held all the knowledge and they would teach people.
Oh, totally.
It's like, what is your professor teaching you on the board that's worth $100,000 you're going to pay for college that you can't learn out of a book? Like, does that professor have knowledge that no one else has access to? It's like, it's all over the internet and books and podcasts. Like, they're not going to teach you anything.
Right.
Obviously, you have to go through the program, get the degree, especially if you want to go to grad school. I mean, I'm a college graduate, so as most people who work for me, but it's like, it's a weird setup where you have to spend all this money to learn this knowledge that is just coming out of a book that the professor is putting on the board for you.
It is interesting because I do think back to college and I'm like, the really good thing of college was I like learned how to learn.
Are you getting all this on camera? Good.
Oh, really?
No, it's okay.
Oh.
Keep going. You had to learn how to learn?
Yeah. Like when you're in like I have an art history degree, which makes zero sense in I don't apply that really in my current field of work. But it's funny because the kids say like, what are you going to do with it? And I'm like, no, I went to college and I learned so much. Like I learned how to be a person. I learned how to time manage. I understood what it was for, just like how to obtain knowledge and then use that knowledge, which is something you don't learn necessarily in regular high school, especially right now in schools. I feel like they're still doing a lot of work to get kids to learn because they're shifting all the time and they're figuring out new ways of educating. And I mean, I'm lucky enough that I have 2 bonus kids and my own kid, so I'm kind of seeing the gamut right now, and they're doing a lot of interesting techniques in school.
Is this public school they're going to?
Public school, yeah. And it's always something that's really tricky when we're talking about it with other parents, because we had so much more structure in school, and I feel like now the structure is gone. So college is almost the last place to learn how to learn, if that makes sense.
What are some of the new techniques they're doing? I'm curious.
Well, for example, elementary school students don't have homework at all, and then middle school students have homework, but they're given homework during the class time period to work on it. But as soon as you get into high school, you're almost overloaded with homework.
Yeah, a ton. Yeah.
So it's just not prepared. You're just underprepared when you're going into higher levels of education. It would be better as a parent to be able to facilitate that learning throughout, starting early on, even if it just meant reading a chapter a day for a 3rd grader, or read this one book in a month, and that's homework.
Yeah.
But having nothing and then going to something in every class, even if it's one homework assignment, to then going into high school where they're almost over maxed out and not being prepared is so, I don't know, just doing such a disservice.
And I don't know how you teach. I mean, I think about school all the time. I don't know how you teach, say you have a class of 20, 25 kids, all different personalities, all different levels of intelligence and interest. How do you educate all those? How do you educate the population in mass? How do you find a one size fits all? There's not. So you're going to teach a certain way that's going to, I guess, work for the majority. But then me, I always hated school. Was always bored with it. Never liked it. Always felt like it was a waste of time. Even as a college graduate, I still kind of feel like it was a waste of time. Not so much, I made great friends who I'm still friends with on some of them. But it's I always kind of knew my passions and my interests and just wanted to do that. I'm not very good at feigning interest in things I'm not interested in, and being forced to study things that I didn't like. I got terrible grades in school. I did decent in college, but I just didn't care. I'm just I know what I want to do, and I know what I like. And I had failed in my 20s of making it financially. So around 30, I'm well, better go to school and finish up my degree because I'm not figuring it out on my own. So I went to get my psych major, which I did. I got my bachelor's, but then I'm like, I don't want to go to grad school. It's too expensive and I hate school. And so then I was just like, started my own business. But yeah, it's really hard because then the students who don't excel with the grades, they're kind of frowned upon as get your shit together or where you're going to go in life, how you're going to function. But the model has changed so much because in my parents' generation, a college degree was worth something. Like you could graduate with a good degree and get a very nice high paying job back in the day. It's not so true anymore, but also with the advent of the internet, you can
Totally.
now build a business from home. You can do so many different things that weren't available decades ago. And the school system and the thought hasn't really caught up to that. So, yeah, it's interesting. When I look at resumes for college graduates, the thing that a college graduate says to me that you're probably somewhat hardworking, you're somewhat disciplined because you had to stick it out for 4 years. You probably were able to deal with stress and frustration, and you made it. You did it. Even if you hated it, you didn't like it. So there's something that tells me about your personality that the average person who didn't go to college might not have. The grades itself never matter to me. Like when I look at resumes and I see all these extracurricular things you did and you're 4.0, I could give a shit. Like, I don't care about that. Because me, I didn't do anything and my grades weren't the best. So I always look at it like, okay, well, we'll see. Because an entrepreneurial type like myself isn't going to excel in school necessarily.
Right.
So when people apply for a job, I'm kind of more interested in seeing. I think like artistic types, entrepreneurial types might struggle more with school than other different types of personalities. And so I'm more interested in just if you've worked jobs and you stayed there long enough, longer than a few months, I know you're probably going to stick around here. But I kind of am attracted to the types that have a hard time fitting in.
The
That's my type.
outliers.
Yeah, because I want
Yeah.
to see like those are, a guy like Elon Musk, for example, like it's not going to fit the
The
standard
mold.
box. So yeah, we'll just see. But anyways, Baltina, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, what a way to
That's a great
start.
intro that we started out with. So give a little background, I guess. Where did you grow up?
So I am originally from Wisconsin,
Okay.
and I'm trying really hard not to say it the way that
I
I
heard
normally
I
say
heard a
it.
little bit, but it's okay.
Normally I say Wisconsin,
Uh-huh.
which is how you should say it if you are from there.
Okay.
But I grew up there and I went to school there, but I'm originally from South Korea. I moved here when
Hmm.
I was 2.
Okay.
But I've been in Bellingham for almost 8 years in
Hmm.
May.
You speak Korean?
So the kind of the joke about being a Korean kid is that you understand a lot of Korean, but you just don't really speak Korean because when you're in a Korean household, oftentimes as a kid, you're just really spoken to
Uh-huh.
and you don't really get to like speak back, which is just how it is.
That's that culture I know. 'Cause, yeah, I've listened to other podcasts with Korean, and that's what they. Yeah,
And so
kind
I
of.
understand everything that people are saying to me,
Uh-huh.
and I can like respond like a little bit as needed,
Uh-huh.
but mostly it's just like I totally understand what they're talking about and
Uh-huh.
I can translate it for you, but there's no like real I can't hold a conversation.
Mm-hmm. How do you say hello in Korean?
안녕하세요.
Oh, nice. That sounds cool. I like that.
Yeah,
Some languages sound really nice on the
I
ears.
know.
German's a little rough, but that sounds nice. I like that.
Yes, it's a little like
Uh-huh.
like German.
And you grew up in Wisconsin, small family, big family?
Small
Uh-huh.
family. My aunt and uncle actually are my parents, which is awesome. They kind of swooped in and I had this really interesting relationship with my mom. And so in the state of Wisconsin, you can actually divorce your parents at 14 or 13.
Really?
So I emancipated myself from her, which
Wow.
was yes, that's just my personality. Like that one story really says a lot about who I am.
And what is that just someone who's headstrong or
I'm
like what
just
is it?
very independent and I am pretty self-assured. Like I know that if I want something, I know how to do it. And if I don't know how to do it, I'll find out how to get it done.
Are you easily influenced by what happens when people say you can't do that?
Oh,
Are
I
you the
will
type
just do it to
that
prove
fires
them
you up?
wrong. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
I've been so driven and I've been so motivated to just be successful.
And where does that come from, you think?
My Korean heritage of
Uh-huh.
like being the very best of the best and also coming from the Midwest, that background of kind of like pull yourself up from the bootstraps is really truly ingrained in both Korean culture as well as like a real Midwestern
Mm-hmm.
type. Like my partner Matt, he is also like that. He's like a really hard worker. He's an amazing engineer, super smart, went to Purdue. Like, he really epitomizes that all-American boy, work hard, and then you'll get what you sow kind of thing.
I love it.
Which I think is such a valuable lesson that back to our kids like are not learning now. And so having kind of both of those things pushed on me helped me a lot, but it also is kind of, a struggle when you're trying to be chill and not an overachiever in everything you're doing.
What was your passion at 13 and 14? Like, what was driving you at that point? So you emancipated yourself from your mom.
Yeah.
And then you said your aunt and uncle swooped in.
Yeah, I gave them, you can decide in the courts, like we served her papers from a lawyer, which is so funny that I'm talking about this on a podcast. Because like I don't really tell a lot of people, but it's fine. I'm very open book. So my aunt and uncle, they have been really amazing as my parents. And so my mom just didn't show up. And so it was very easy to say, okay, these people are here and they're acting as, stand-in parents, and I would like to give them my whatever guardianship or whatever it was, whatever title.
Let me ask you this. How did you know you could even do that at 13 or 14? Did someone like at school tell
I
you
think
to do
I
that?
connected with my guidance counselor. I've always been really good at finding the resources, which is something that I think is a skill that a lot of people don't have. Like, I am such a good detective. Like, if you have a question that you don't have an answer to, I 100% will find that answer for you, source it, and then like get it to you within a day.
It's interesting, right? That resilience that people have to find a solution or a way. Like, and like even setting up this podcast, for example, I had no idea how to do it, and I had a guy come in who I talked to who was going to do it for me, but he was like really flaky, and it was going to cost me like $500 an episode, and he was gonna, and I don't know anything about video or lighting, I don't know anything about any of this, and I'm like. Well, he was so flaky. I'm like, screw it. I'll just do it myself. And so I went on YouTube and watch videos and just Google stuff and read forums and just like learn. But that skill does seem to be lost a lot on people. Like there's Google, guys, and YouTube, and all that information's out there.
So much DIY in the world.
Yeah, like
it's just a lot of motivation, and that's something that I think I've experienced both in like just being a grown up in the world, and having hired employees for my own business as well as other businesses that I've managed, and having kids. There's a real distinction between two types of personalities, like the go-getters and the just watchers, and the people who create versus who, consume. And that's really that force that we kind of always talk about, because you're always like, you're into making and you're into like taking action, and you want to know what's next, and you're like, what can you do to grow? And there's a big difference, I think, that you can see just in our world of those two levels, and you can see it. It's like a big part of people are consuming, obviously. Like, look at all of the outlets that we have to consume. But there's so much lack in the creation. Like, it's a lot of the same kind of content, because the people who are consuming are just seeing what other people, like a lot of mimicry. So I just feel like that's been something that is really lost too. I totally just went off topic.
There's no topic where we could be
okay. I'm like,
okay.
Oh, this is kind of like
I'll bring us back. But this is interesting. Over. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's just something that, as you and I and like the entrepreneur and the thing we were talking about earlier, can come back to, like, yes, like there are those molds of people that fit into that box, and those are the consumers. And then there are the entrepreneurs who are really successful, who are really motivated to find that out of the box idea, out of the box way of thinking that really makes the place we live in grow special, because we're able to kind of be resilient and
where do you think that drive though is tools? Like, I think about, like, why is it are we trying to do it for, like, is it, were we just born that way? Is there some sort of thing we're trying to fulfill? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
Is it restlessness? Is it feeling of like, because I think about this too, like all my successes don't feel like an overwhelming, rewarding, long-lasting anything. In fact, it feels like nothing.
We've talked about this though.
Yeah, and it's like, it's almost like failure would feel, I'd get more of a feeling out of failure than I would out of success, because if I can do something, then I feel, well, it wasn't that hard because I could do it.
When was the last time you failed?
I mean, probably
like on your face fell and like just egg on your face, couldn't believe you did that.
I mean, I haven't not since maybe my early 20s, because I had to move back home 3 times because I went broke trying to make it my own way. When
How
the
did
car
that
got
feel?
repossessed, I felt horrible because I didn't want to move back home.
But did you feel any different than you did when you feel successful?
Emotionally, yes, but in a negative way.
So you
Like,
felt more feeling failing than
yeah.
you do when you're feeling like you're on top of the world.
Yeah, I never felt on top of the world, but just like, all of this that I have now came from me just with $300, and in 7 years it blew up to this. And
And hustling.
that's pretty, I can think, wow, that's pretty incredible. Like, that's a cool story, but like, it doesn't feel like anything. Like, I don't walk around feeling like I've made it, or that's an accomplishment, or that's a success. I'm always like, as soon as the high, not even a high, but as soon as I'm not super busy, I'm just like, I need to be doing, like, what? Like, let's go do something else. And I don't have a hard time with idleness and too much leisure. I like hard stuff. I like doing stuff that's hard that most people would fail at. I like the idea that I'm in a brick and mortar business, which if there was ever a time in history to not open a brick and mortar business, is probably right now. And I'm like, well, I can do it. These people
Yeah.
don't know what they're doing. I'll figure it out. Like, I like shit like that. But
Why do you think that you are so motivated to go past that? Like when you hit a milestone
mm,
or some point of like celebration,
yeah.
do you pause and celebrate or do you just go like on to the next thing?
I'm really good at pausing to appreciate things in my life. So I do have appreciation. Like,
But when you succeed,
uh-huh.
not when others succeed.
No, I do have it for myself, where I guess what I do is I stop and I think to myself, like, even walking into this warehouse or owning a brick and mortar store, I stop and think, wow, this is so cool. Like, there will come a day in my life where I will no longer be in this warehouse, and like Danielle and the other people who work for me will no longer be around me, because we're all going to move on. They're not going to work for me for 50, 60 years. They're going to, and also, like, I don't want to be like an 80-year-old man driving down Horton Road and being like, once upon a time I had a warehouse there, but I was just so preoccupied with the next thing. I never lived and enjoyed it really. I never. So there's moments where I walk in and I just am totally present in the moment. I pay attention. I open the door and I walk in. I'm like, wow, this is really. And so I do take those moments to just like appreciate and reflect the things I have, because I never want to be on my deathbed at the end of my life thinking, fuck, I was just so busy in my mind to do the next thing, next thing, next thing, that I never just stopped for a moment and been like, wow, feels good and is really neat.
But you
But
don't get that fulfilling sense. You don't
no,
feel
it
like,
just
oh my
feels.
gosh, I'm so like that
Mhm.
gratitude isn't met with like a full
Yeah,
rounded feeling.
not really. No.
You don't feel like so much joy knowing that you like
Yeah,
provide a place of employment.
I feel that with my workers, more so the people overseas, because I employ a lot of people in a third world country,
Oh yeah, we talked
and
about how you have
yeah, and so
people
I
with
pay them
homes
a lot
and
more than
things.
they could make there, and it's changed their lives, and they tell me, they're like, oh my god, thank you so much, like, like, we couldn't do this without you, like, thank you, thank you. The one, these ones here, it's nice, but we live in the U.S. I know they'll be fine if, obviously I'm happy to employ them, but I know Danielle's just fine if she can't work here. All of a sudden, she can go find another job. It's not a third world country where all of a sudden she can't. I mean, in the Philippines, where I have a lot of my workers, they tell me that they don't make enough money at jobs there to even pay their daily living expenses. How if you're over the age of 30 in the Philippines, no one wants to hire you. Like, just crazy stuff like that. How
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to find jobs. But, so I do feel good about that and the charities that I donate money to. And, you know, that knowing that, though, gives me the motivation to work hard to not fail, because I don't want to, you know,
Because you
but
feel like responsible for those individuals.
I feel like if you have the potential, if you have whatever it is, genetic gifts you have that allow you to succeed in life, to provide financially for yourself and your family, not everyone has those gifts. And so if you're in a position where you do have that and you can provide a better life for other people who don't have the opportunities you have, that you should be taking that as a responsibility, but also like just a blessing that you have something that other people don't have. And so for you to hoard all that for yourself, I think is a little wrong. And then I also think if you are providing a lifestyle for people, it is, like, you can't slack off on your responsibilities. I can't be like, you know what, I'm just going to not work for a month. And then I'm
Right.
going to have financial trouble in my business. And then I'm going to have to lay those people off because I can't afford to pay the bills. And this is the retail business is a very competitive, hard business. We just recently we're making a whole new change to our system because of how things are going in the retail space. It's so competitive, And so you have to be on top of the game and you have to work hard, because if not, there's people out there trying to crush you and take, there's people out there working 100 hours a week. So if you're like, I'm good at 40, well, that guy who's doing double the work you're doing is gonna probably surpass you, and it could hurt you and put you down. And so I'm always aware of that. And so I just remember when I first started how passionate and hungry and insane I was. And
what's your drive? What's your why?
I don't even know, to be honest. I would say this: I do thoroughly love it so much.
Love what?
I love finding products to buy. I love reselling them. I love building businesses, running them. I love doing the promos for the store, seeing which ones work, which ones don't. And if they do fail, I'm like, that's okay. We can find another one that will work, and seeing what takes off. I love seeing the sales increase based on my team's work and effort. I love that. I love knowing that there's a problem and I'm able to fix it, no matter how hard it is.
But you don't know why you do it.
The stimulation, the reward, I love it.
But
it's like rewarding.
But that's not your why.
I don't know what that means.
I think you need to know what your why is.
I've heard this said before, and I've never understood this question.
So like your why is the reason you wake up in the morning. Your why is the reason that you continue to make goalposts for yourself and for, your business.
But it's for the love of the game, though. I'm sure I know you're doing your Peloton bike.
Oh, totally.
I see you. I know you like to run. But like, why do you do that? It's because you enjoy it. I'm sure
well, no, I
health.
do it for my mental wellness, and mostly my why is for my like little kid self that was just kind of a little bit forgotten, and for my amazing family that I have right now.
Yeah.
And that's like totally why I do it. And knowing that, like, that is like a real solid, like, if I am ever in doubt, if I don't know exactly why I'm deciding to do something, I always have those two things to like really reflect back on. And that is giving me the drive to keep going. Because, dude, there's so many times where we could be like, I'm out, I'm done, like, I don't want to do this. But if you don't have a real reason to do it, you could just stop every time.
Yeah.
But we also are just very self-motivated, and I think that helps a lot. And for the why, for sure, might not be something that you need. But in times of like the joy that you feel, maybe that is the why you're missing.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard this question, like, I see the stuff in self-help stuff and motivational
Totally. I
talks.
love self-help stuff.
The why. I've never understood that question. It's been a thing because for me, even as a little kid, and I do want to talk about you some more than me, but we will get back to you. But I just like, even as a little kid, I would sell baseball cards. I was always entrepreneurial. I just loved it. It was fun to me. I didn't care about like partying and chasing
girls. Did you do it because you wanted to impress anyone, like your parents?
No, because my parents, they never really supported the thing. I was always the black sheep that wanted to do my own
so
thing.
Could that be why you do it? That could be your why. I know it sounds super therapy, and you definitely have a degree in psychology. So I love self-help, and I'm like such an advocate of therapy. And it's so interesting because I think that it truly does come back down to like your childhood self. Like, why were you so intent on selling those baseball cards?
I don't know, because it's hard to tease apart genetics, the nature versus nurture. Was I just born? Like, some people are just born, grow up in a loving, supportive family, and they like to sing or dance or do art or teach or play sports or fill in the blank. But when you come from a troubled family, then it's always, oh, is that because your father was mean and abused you that you like this thing? It's like, no, I like it. So it's always hard for me to like say, well, I'll never know if I just out of the box like this. And I think it was just genetic because but it's hard to.
But when you say you're the black sheep of the family, as an outsider who knows you a little bit better, because we've had a couple of conversations besides this podcast, I feel like it might be something interesting to kind of like dig into. Like we have very similar backgrounds with our parents, and just like it was a little bit rough. Yeah, like we didn't have like the fun, what I like to call the middle upper class family vacation family.
We never went on vacation once, so I don't even know what that is with the family.
Yeah, I didn't go on vacation until I was 22 with my now ex-husband. And it was funny because it was a camping trip, and I was like, I've never gone camping. I've never been on an airplane for fun. I've never gone to vacation. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
I was always working. Like, I love to work, and I thought that was what you just did. But it's interesting to do that nature versus nurture, right? Because if you do the work and you start digging into why you are the way you are, it is interesting the patterning that you have picked up as a kid from everyone around you. Like most people, if they learn my story, are like, how are you who you are? Like I feel like I'm pretty grounded. I'm very outgoing. I'm super generous, a little bit too much with my time. I'm a yes person and I'm working on no as a full sentence. But growing up in the background of poverty and a little bit of like a lot of unstableness, but still being who I am of like resilient and like an entrepreneur. Like I like love my kids. Like I had a parent who did not. Like that does not align, you know, and I work really hard to not be my mom. And so it's so interesting to hear you say like, is it nature versus nurture, and how much of it is just innately born in us? And I think that there are traits for sure that we're born with that we as adults have just picked up and almost like covered up with our patterning that just need time to unpack itself. And I'm just curious if like maybe that drive you had as a kid was different, came from a different place than now it does as an adult.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? So like why as a kid did you do that? And then it transferred into like, yeah, now you just do it for the hustle.
I mean, I could say, you know, I had a father that would tell me I was stupid all the time and tell me, you know, and so I always had a hard time with authority, always. Even as an adult at the age of 40, like, I need to say this in the way that doesn't make me sound like like a super egomaniac or anything, but like, I'm not anybody I meet. I never think anyone else is smarter than me. Not in like, I think they're stupid, but I know I'm always just like, I know this person is smart. I know they have great ideas. I don't like look at them as dumb, but I look at myself as an equal to them. I never feel inferior. So but I never feel like this person knows more than me or is smarter than me. Even as a kid, I didn't think adults were smarter than me. I'm just thinking, because the things that I would do and say didn't make logical sense to me, because I'm very much like an analytical, like look at the facts. I'm a very much a science guy. That's why I'm not religious at all. Like I'm very much, well, that doesn't make any sense to me, even though I was raised Catholic and went to Catholic school for 10 years, like that sort of stuff. And so as an adult, I don't know, I have like supreme self-confidence in my ability to be resilient, like we talked about earlier, and find the answer and get the result I want. And even if I don't get the result and I fail, I'm okay if I fail, as long as I know that I gave it my best and I put my effort in. And that's one of the reasons I work so hard, is because if I fail and then I know I fucked off on the weekend and just played video games, and it's like, well, maybe if you put in those extra hours, that little extra oomph of an extra 10 hours a week might have got you to the finish line. And you didn't do that, and now you failed, and you never know if you would have been a success. So that's on you. And then that guilt of not knowing will eat at me and be like, that's one of the reasons for the drive is, you know, when I don't want to fail. And if I do fail, I'll never know if I could have succeeded if I just would have worked a little bit harder. And you and I met the last time we met. You talked to me about
totally talked about this.
I have been taking more time to chill. I don't work quite as much as I used to.
Just like 60 hours a week, not 100.
Yeah, and even that's not a lot if you think about it.
But, so work-life balance, that's insane. That's an insane.
I really want to get back to you though.
That's
a little bit.
So much work.
It is, but I just want to. We'll come back to this, but you told me before when we first met that you used to make and sell belts as a kid.
Yeah, like the Etsy, not Etsy. It was called Delia's, and you can like get hot glue gun from like Joanne Fabrics, and then they sell all these buttons, and then you could go buy belts from Walmart for $5. And then you could, you know, sell them for like 12 or 13 bucks and make like a $5 profit.
Nice. And where were you? So how
like like, you know, just like friends, neighborhood kids. I didn't make a bunch, but I definitely.
And did you get interested in that because you guys grew up in poverty and you just want to make some extra cash?
You know what? My uncle, who is like my dad, he has always, and still to this day, he is like just always looking for that side hustle. And like he's just he has the entrepreneurial genetic, whatever that coding is. And he definitely influenced me a little bit on that, because I mean, I grew up reading Rich Dad Poor Dad for kids. We played the Robert Kiyosaki game, Get Out of the Rat Race. Like we didn't play like regular games when I eventually moved in with them and stayed with them. He was definitely really wanting to make sure that I was financially responsible and educated. And so I think I just like picked up little tips and tricks that he would do, and I would see him kind of coming up with different creative ideas. He definitely, if he watches, is gonna laugh, but he definitely got into some of those pyramid schemes.
I did those.
You know what I mean? Really into like Amway.
Yeah, my parents did that. I never did Amway. My parents were in that one.
But my aunt also sold like Mary Kay products or Avon. Maybe it was called Avon,
My
I
mom
think.
did Avon.
So she sold Avon. And so I always saw like these other opportunities beyond just like they both had jobs.
Yeah.
You know, and they both worked like 9, regular hours, and but then they did these things on the side.
Yeah.
But then they still cared for us as kids. So I was like, okay, well, like you can just do that and that and that, like so I can do that when I grow up.
Yeah.
So then even in college, I had an entrepreneurial brain where I started my own cupcake company.
Let me ask you this real quick, though. I do want to get back to the cupcake company. What were you like as a student? Did you love school, hate school? Did you struggle?
I was a nerd. I really liked school. I hated math because I thought I was so bad at it. But I just think I didn't understand the way they were teaching it because I had a really great teacher sit me down and say, like, this is actually how you can do it. It was just one way. It was like one way, and this is the only way to do it. There weren't alternatives. And now I think that that's something that the schools are doing much better. They're definitely offering multiple ways of doing things, which is great. And they're doing like critical thinking, which is a good tool, but I also think that there are still some gaps. So in school, I definitely love school. My friend Bailey would make fun of me and say like, you just want to be at school right now. And I loved it. But school is also like a really great safe haven for me. It was something I had really good structure wise.
And because of your Korean background, were you very respectful of authority figures?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To this day, even. Like I say like, yes, ma'am, to my aunt,
But what about people like bosses and stuff or other people around
Oh
you?
yeah, no, I like you're an authority, like I will be 100%
Obedient?
super, yeah. And like I'll go out of my way to exceed their expectations just to like make them feel really proud of like like that's still totally ingrained in me. And that's actually something I'm trying not to do with our kids because that's such like a shitty trait. Sorry. Like it's such like a I don't just so dumb. Like I try so hard to be the very best at everything that it's almost detrimental. So that's when we were
Do you beat yourself up if you're not the best or you don't do a good
You know,
job?
I
You ruminate
used
on it
to. I
forever?
used to a long time, forever and ever, hold on to that one thing. But then I realized that, you know what? There's some success and failure. And there's a lot of success in imperfection, which I've learned recently. And I'm only 32, and I've learned that since I was like, in my 30s. I got a divorce a couple of years ago, and that was a big catalyst because that was kind of a big fail. Like when you get married, you're like, I'm gonna be in a marriage and it's gonna be forever. And the one thing that came out of that is that my ex and I now are like co-parenting like a boss. Like we're so good at it. And he's like an amazing parent. And I'm so incredibly grateful that I have that goodness to come out of it because that's something that we're actually able to show our daughter. Like,
yeah, you guys can both model it well. Yeah.
bro, like you don't have to be a jerk. And our number one rule is like be kind. Like of any rule in our house, it's like be kind. Like I don't say anything else to the kids if they're arguing except for like be kind. And that just like sums it all up.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of family rules, but that for sure is like that one that we can show in our actions as well as just kind of reinforce day to day. But yeah, I think that I used to really hold on to that, like, oh shit, I like failed or like I really messed up. And I'm the kind of person that if I don't know the answer, it just kills me because I want to be right all the time. And the very best thing I learned in real estate when I was in real estate was I'm going to double check. Having that space to let myself double check things has been a little bit of a grace for me to feel like, okay, this is like you're giving yourself a little space to like get the answer so you don't beat yourself up later.
And what was the motivation for, in college starting the cupcake company? Like how did that come to be a thing?
I had a really interesting, I don't know, like I started to try out a vegan diet and vegan stuff at that time was awful. It was so gross.
How old are you at this time?
I was like 19.
Okay.
So it's been a while. And it's funny because I think back to that time and like I hated the girl that I was. I did not like the person I was becoming. Like I was just really self-obsessed of like, like I became vegan for all the wrong reasons. Like I wanted to be really skinny. I thought it would be like the magic pill for all of my problems.
Why were you not skinny at that point?
Oh
Were you
no, I was like super skinny.
okay? Because I was gonna say you don't look like a person that could
No,
really
yeah.
get big. You know?
No, but like girls growing
Uh-huh.
up in an Asian background as well as just in our generation,
Uh-huh.
like like our millennial generation, like we talk about anorexia and bulimia more than our 8-year-old knows about it right now.
Yeah.
Like it just was ever present, and I think that like reinforced it for me. So growing up, I had battled a lot with eating disorders, and so in college when I was stressed out, that was the immediate fallback, was like, what can I control? Oh right, my weight. And so like during stressful times, it was like, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna run 10 miles today, I'm going to like change my diet. And then I read this book, Skinny Bitch in the Kitchen, I think it was what it was called. It was like a big movement of like vegan diet, and it had like this really great black cover. I don't recommend that book because it
Uh-uh.
literally like, it was just not, I would never recommend reading that to like my kids, like the 2 girls we have. No way. If I saw that book on their shelf, I'd be like, why are you reading this garbage?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't need to be the skinny bitch in the kitchen.
Uh-huh. That's wow. That's intense. That was an actual book, huh?
It's an actual book. And
Uh-huh.
I like feel badly about the woman who wrote it. I'm sorry if she ends up seeing this.
Uh-huh.
But I just think that, yeah, that title for sure like drew me in. Like I was like, yeah, I want to be like super skinny.
Uh-huh.
I want to be like that girl. And so yeah, it was like a really interesting time in my life where I thought being a vegan would be a magic pill, and this book kind of reinforced that. And so
And so with your
I
entrepreneurial mindset, you went
I was
towards
like, dude, there was like this thing that I could do, and I like started baking, and I would start bringing him into this coffee shop that I would go to all the time called Roast Coffee, like right around the corner from campus. And I met up with this cool kid who owned his own business. He started printing t-shirts for his friend's daughter who had cancer, I think, and he would donate some of the proceeds
mm-hmm.
to that. And it was awesome. It was called Megabolt, and he lives in Portland and does like nonprofit stuff still. But he had a gallery opening at that coffee shop and had asked me to cater it.
Oh wow, that's so
And
cool.
I was like,
And was this your first gig?
ever
You were gonna
gig.
wow.
And
Were you
he,
super nervous and
yeah.
but
And he
excited?
was like, also, my mom's gonna have her friends there, bring business cards. So I remember I like literally started my business in 48 hours
Wow, that's
because
so
I
cool.
printed cards and I picked them up from like Kinko's or
Uh-huh.
something. And I had to think of like a name. So I just picked like a really generic name. I like Googled like bakery businesses that were not like already taken in our area. And it was Sweet Cakes wasn't one that I like saw on the list. And so I started a business called Sweet Cakes, and it was a vegan and gluten-free baking company.
And up to this point, was your entrepreneurial mind always kind of looking
It
for
was
a new
always
idea, like just
looking for some
going, going,
idea.
going?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and like I'm always that person that has like a list of things, like a billion ideas all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just too many.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm to the point where I'm like a grown up now, and I can just be like, okay, that's like, it's going to go on the list. I don't have to take action. But back then I'd be like, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Like I would do like work full time at a bar, and then I would go to school, and then I would be done with school and go do like the afternoon dinner service at this like really posh brewery place,
Mm-hmm.
it's like Belgian beer bar, and then I would go home and bake cupcakes,
Oh my God. Uh-huh.
and then I would like do it all over
So you're
again.
doing like 100-hour work
Like I
weeks, 120.
loved it,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, this is who I am, and like
Yeah,
I'm gonna do it all. And my favorite thing
I
that
love
would have
it.
happened would when people would be like, I just don't know how you do it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
easy.
What was your mindset though when you get tired or you had so much work and you're stressed? How did you continue to push forward? I'm curious.
Just to prove that those
You,
people that were like, you can't do this, you're
mm-hmm.
never gonna sustain.
Yeah.
Like you aren't. And it's funny because Facebook has those reminders of what you would post back in the
5 years
day.
ago, yeah.
5 years ago today, 10
Uh-huh.
years ago today. There was one that was like 12 years ago today. And it was funny because like I wrote this like list of things that I was gonna do that day. And then like the second post was like, got it all done. And
Uh-huh.
like,
I love it.
but like
Uh-huh.
Facebook was something that Instagram is now. It was just a showcase of like,
You're making it.
I'm
You're
I'm
succeeding.
doing it.
Uh-huh.
I'm awesome, and like you're not doing anything.
Uh-huh.
I used to
Uh-huh.
do this thing when I would race, which is like a really bad thing that I feel bad about doing, but it shows that where my mindset was back in the day, which was I would pass somebody when I was running and I'd be like, "It's okay, you'll catch up. Don't worry."
Oh, damn.
And I just like thought that was a nice
If you
thing to
said that to me
say.
when we were running, I would kill myself to beat you.
Oi.
That would fire me up. I would break my body to beat you. I'd be like,
So
I'm gonna get this.
I thought, you guys, no
Uh-huh.
lie, I thought that that was like nice.
Uh-huh.
I
I
thought
love.
that
Oh
was
my God.
something like
Well, you got that
motivational.
competitive spirit, though.
And
You
I would
know.
tell people like I'm not competitive.
Mhm.
And then someone asked me like, "Hey, aren't you that person? Like I think you ran by me once and you said like I was going to see you at the finish line or something or I'll pass you." And I was like, "Oh, I always used to say that to people cuz I thought it was like a motivational thing."
Uh-huh.
And they're like, "No, that's mean." And I was like,
That's
"Oh,
funny.
I'm so sorry." And like I have never said that ever
Uh-huh.
since.
It's so funny how you can do those things and think based on where you're at in your life and your mindset. Because yeah, it's really weird. I can't think of any specific examples, but I was similar type stuff, which to the average is very harsh and mean. But to me, I guess because of my the way I grew up, that was said to me.
Background.
That sort of stuff was how I was communicated to. So as an adult, you just kind of repeat what you've been raised with, and so you just
Yeah, it's called like emotional family patterning
yeah,
or whatever it's called.
yeah.
We have a great therapist. I have two great therapists, a counselor for our family and then myself, but that's just something that continues to come up.
Mm-hmm.
Just that patterning of like what's repetitively been told and that self-talk. We've talked about that self-talk that what you say to yourself on the regular basis is what you're going to believe forever. And that's something in the last 2 years that I've totally been working on.
At what point in your life did you get into like going to counseling and the self help
I've been
and
in counseling forever.
uh-huh.
I've been in counseling since I was a kid. Um, yeah, probably since I was like 11 or
And there was no
12.
breaks in like
No, I
20s or
mean,
anything?
I probably took a little break between my freshman year of college. Yeah, probably like high school, college, like there's a little break, but I went right back into counseling
Mhm.
in college because I felt like, oh shit, like there's some shifting happening and I'm like out of control.
So during this time of like bartending, business, school, were you in counseling and did your counselor say anything about why are you working and doing so much?
Yeah,
And
we
what
had a
was
lot of like breakthrough
and
moments.
can you share any of those of why you were going? Was it just to prove yourself and
It
kind of
was a
like what you
lot of
said?
like running away from the things that I was running away from my whole life, like as a kid, like the self-worth issue. Like I had like so low self-esteem, and that's from just like some things that happened as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and some like abuse that happened. And so when that happens to you as a kid, you instantly gravitate towards like, oh my God, I'm like not worthy of any love and attention and affection. And like that you hold that worthiness so tightly throughout your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was definitely the my why.
Mm-hmm.
My why was proving that I was worth it and like worthy of it,
Mm-hmm.
which is I think 99% of why people do anything is like they're proving something to someone, and I was just proving it to myself that like you get to be okay and
Mm-hmm.
like you're okay and you're worthy of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're worth it. Like the
And
lawyer, that makeup commercial.
and so, how long in your life did you have that insane work ethic? Where,
Until like 2 years ago.
uh-huh. And what was it 2 years ago that changed that for you?
I got divorced.
Uh-huh.
And then
Uh-huh.
I still had to get that insane work ethic.
Uh-huh.
But I had a kid, really. That was the catalyst. That was the shift. I had this tiny little baby who was so cute and she was so needy and
Mm-hmm.
she wanted all of my attention and it was a lot and I had postpartum depression and I didn't know I had postpartum depression. And then I was like talking to my now ex-husband, great co-dad, co-parent dad, and saying like I need to do something else. Like I lost my identity when I had this little kid. And then I got a job at Fairburn Runners part-time, which was amazing. And I kind of just like started to like peek at what I was missing being a stay-at-home parent. Like being a stay-at-home parent really was like this big like aha moment of like, oh, this is not what I want to do. This is not who I am. I'm too motivated
Mm-hmm.
to be a stay-at-home parent.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
that was like really gut-wrenching because I just like wanted so badly to be that role and be that identity. And I felt like I should be that role because when I had decided to be a stay-at-home parent, I cannot tell you how many 50-year-old white men said to me, I am so proud of you for doing that. And being
Uh-huh.
like the authority figure, being an older person, being like a white person, you know what I mean? Like being the stereotypical stamp of approval.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh yeah, like I should do that. And then like even my family were like, oh my gosh, you can like be a stay-at-home parent. That's awesome. But it made sense for us at the time because my ex-husband, he was working, but I mean, it made sense for us to do that financially.
And how long were you at the stay-at-home mom for? The whole time you guys were together?
18 months or maybe less than that. She was a year, 12, like 14 months. She was 14 months old, and I got a part-time job. And then I like was like, oh, I like this.
And your entrepreneurial brain must have been going crazy though.
I didn't realize it, but I was definitely like, I felt really stuck.
I never told you this before. So you and I met because I DM'd you on Instagram because you were selling real estate at the time, and I was looking to buy a house, and I had followed you for like 6 months. I was, with some other realtors, and you were the first one I met. We grabbed a cup of coffee, but after that first meeting, like I just knew right away. Like when I met you, I'm like, oh, this person has that thing. Like they have it. Like I can kind of intuitively just feel.
Oh, thank you.
And it's like it's very rare that I ever meet people very often that I feel like is on the same kind of crazy that I have.
Yeah.
But I felt that in a good way. I mean, crazy. But
no,
like,
I get the crazy. No,
I was
get
just like,
it.
but I was just like, wow, I really like this person that I just met who I barely know. But I was like, oh, this one has it. Because of all the, when we had that conversation, and you told me about your life, how you used to sell belt and all these things you did. And I could just tell like you had that. And you can tell right away, usually within minutes. I can usually tell right away if someone's got the thing. And it's more of just like an intuitive thing. But I was like, oh, wow. And then I didn't see you for like a year almost. And then I would, but we'd occasionally chit chat through Instagram or whatever. But I told Paul, and I tell you, like, I always talked about you. I was like, wow. Like, I always thought, yeah, this one, you're the type of person that will be able to do whatever you want to do. And whether or not you succeed, you'll definitely have results that are way above average. Like, you're that type of person that can find a way to make it happen and work hard at it. And it doesn't matter what anyone else says. If you want it, you'll just go and get it. And so I think with any direction you go in, you're always going to find success.
Which is so flattering. Thank you for saying that. That's so nice. Like, I definitely have a hard time like taking that and being like, thank you. Because that's like a huge compliment. So thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But it's very hard to hear that as like an overachiever. Because it's almost like, well, then I don't have to work so hard. Like, why am I working so? But it is like, I won't ever work hard. When I left real estate, a lot of people were like, you'll be fine in whatever you do. And I was like, how do you know that? Like, you'll just be fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. But I'm still like, oh no, I'm gonna hustle my butt and I'm gonna be the very best, and like we're gonna be number one.
Where are you at now, like with mindset and everything? So after your divorce was when you started kind of turning.
I did a lot of self work. I did a lot of therapy. I participated a lot in just becoming the very most mentally healthy person I could be.
Were you depressed at that point?
I had a lot of anxiety.
So it was mostly.
So my mindset at that point was a lot of fear based in lack. So I had a lot of lack mentality. So my motivation at that time was making sure that I was financially stable.
Did you feel like you were happy, or is it just mostly?
I was just in survival mode. My brain was in survival mode, and I knew that there was no way that I could sustain survival mode if I was going to be a successful business owner. So I started real estate school in October of the year I got divorced. I moved out of our house in December of that year. I moved into our friend's house, which were so nice. They let me move in like right away into their room with my daughter. And my ex-husband and I like had a really good plan. And it was very like, he had a little bit difficult time. Obviously, like I initiated that, but he's been amazing as a co-parent. And so we had a really good schedule, but I had 2 jobs and I just started real estate business at that same time. So I was in real estate school working 2 jobs, and one happened to be managing a bakery at 5 a.m.
Wow.
So my days were really crazy. So I was just like overall in survival mode, and then I was still mentally in survival mode. And then I had a really amazing mentor and friend, Heather Simpson, who has a really cool business in Bellingham, who helps women kind of shift their mindsets, called She Leads Me, who would be really good to have on your podcast as well. And so she kind of was saying like, this fear and this lack mentality will just continue to cultivate into more fear and more lack, like you really need to work on that and see how to get out of it. Because once you're in that cycle, it's just like a tornado and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then there's more things to add to that fear and more things to add to your lack.
I'm curious, like, what makes you like feel good? Because I know when I was poor and didn't have a lot of money, I was so like stressed and restless. All I wanted to do was make money, find a business, build it, make money. Like
Mm-hmm.
preoccupied. It's all I could think about. I didn't care about anything else. It's just like, and I just getting comfortable financially. You know, I don't have to be rich. I don't have to be a multimillionaire, but I need to be comfortable. And I'm curious, like, what and was there moments in your life where maybe you didn't feel that about money, or maybe it was money, but what would make you feel better? Was
No,
it a
my
success?
trigger,
Uh-huh.
number one trigger, my fear trigger is financials. Like
Uh-huh.
my goal for my real estate clients, even now into lending, like I have two pillars where I work from, and that's honesty and financial success. So like whenever I meet with a new client or meet friends, like I am always speaking and acting and doing from a place of like being 100% real and 100% honest with you, while also knowing that like my goal is for you to be financially successful long term. And that's just something that I want for myself, because as soon as like I had, I moved out, I had like $3,000 in my bank account, and I was like, okay, I have to work really, really hard and I have to invest all of this into my real estate business. And having the trust in myself was big, because I was like, okay, this is all on you, kid, and this is all you have. Like, I can definitely get a job at any point because Bellingham is pretty great and I'm a hard worker. So I was like, okay, I have a fallback. Having a contingency plan was something that was always helpful to make me feel comfortable. But even like today, if I'm feeling a little anxious, I just have to like stop and be like, okay, what part of this conversation was about money? Because that will be the thing that I'm like, oh no, it's just this. And like
Hmm.
now identifying that has helped a lot.
Do you feel like a failure or not good enough if you don't have money, or when you?
I used to,
Yeah.
but now I don't let that be the success determining factor.
Hmm. I
I've,
feel like you and I are like the same person. You might be a little bit more evolved than me,
dude, I'm
but
telling you, I'm telling you, like when we talked, I was
uh-huh.
like, I am you 3 years ago.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like it's about that identity of you let your fear drive you.
Hmm.
And now they're just passengers in my car.
Hmm.
Like I have them as companions. Like, yes, like I have anxiety, but like I manage it with a lot of tools. And I have a lack mentality, but I manage that by having plans in place and knowing that like I have a very, very, very secure financial plan.
Hmm.
I have a contingency for that plan, and that contingency is like fail proof, you
Hmm.
know? So just knowing that I have things in place really can help address those fears when I have them, to make sure that I don't have to deal with them. And that gives me more space to then feel the good feelings
Hmm.
I have. And kind of like I was saying, when wins happen, I can enjoy them a little bit more because I've had
Hmm.
some tools to address these other things.
What sort of emotions like creep up in you? Like, do you get restless still? Like restlessness,
No,
dissatisfaction, anything?
no, I'm like so good.
Uh-huh.
Like I just did a big career shift, and that should have been something that was like, oh my God. But
Mm.
I made that decision with such a clear mind because I've had so many amazing tools that I've been cultivating in the last 2.5 years, 2 years, to really help keep me grounded. And knowing that I'm like in a grounded place, mentally well, physically healthy, I'm able to make better conscious decisions. And I think that really is the reason why I'm like, okay, yeah, like I feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some days where I'm like maxed out. Like last week we had a fever kid. I was in week 3 of a new job.
Mm-hmm.
We were working on 4 refinances. Like it was crazy. Also, my ex-husband just had a baby
Mm-hmm.
the day that our daughter spiked a fever.
Oh man. Uh-huh.
And that lasted 5 days.
Wow.
Plus, we
Uh-huh.
still have 2 other kiddos who need to be taken care of while we
Busy.
were dog sitting.
Oh my
So I'm
God.
like,
That's so much. Uh-huh.
so I could either take this one of two ways. Like I could be so crazy and overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
or I can just have a plan. And I was like mentally sound enough to be like, this is the plan. And it was fun because I got to sit down with my partner and be like, holy shit, we like got this. Like we are like killing
Mm-hmm.
it. And I got to talk to my ex-husband and be like, buddy, like we just thrived that week. Like you had a new daughter who's in the hospital, but she's like crushing it on that side. Your wife is amazing. You're doing this thing on like two kid fronts, and like we're just doing so well. And I think all the work I put in to get to this place has been what's really helped.
Yeah, and I've thought about that with you because I know how hard you can work at something that you want to work at, and it seems like this area of your life like is
Yeah.
really like I was like thinking I was like she's gonna be very successful in her relationships and with her children and like your health and everything because that's where you're focusing all that
Yes.
energy at now.
Because I have a really good base in my business. Like I worked really hard for the last 2 years establishing relationships in real estate and in my friendships with people that I've met in real estate, that I now have a really solid foundation to move forward in lending, which is what I'm doing now. And I worked really hard to be a professional, and I worked really hard to learn how to do real estate well. And I was a very successful real estate agent. And stepping away at the time I did seems insane to a lot of
Why did you step
people.
away though?
Um, because I was on vacation in Hawaii with my family. That was a milestone that I never thought I would reach. 8-year-old Baltina in the Midwest, living in a hotel with her mom and stepdad, would have never thought that she would be in Maui with a really good girlfriend and this amazing family.
Yeah.
And I like was working.
Oh, you were working while you're in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had told my family like, I'm not going to work at all. Like I have a contingency. Like we got this. But I had this one deal. It was one deal I had to work on, but I was the only person that could take care of it. And I'm such a overachiever that I like wouldn't relinquish that power over to anybody else. And I was really stressed out and I was really grumpy and my kids were really mad and my partner was really mad. And I realized when I came home, like, I don't ever want to go to Hawaii again. And I was like, what? Who says that? Who says like, no, I'm not going to Hawaii. Like it was a beautiful place. Like we had an amazing time. I went with now who's like, she's like my boss now, Alicia, and her family were there. And we had just like the best day. But I let the one day that I worked really affect my whole vacation. And that really opened it up to like my priorities. I was like, oh shit, like my priorities are not where I want them to be. And they definitely, I mean, real estate, amazing opportunity for growth and wealth and like real estate. When people say like you can do anything in real estate, you can do anything in real estate.
Yeah.
You can make as much money as you want
Yeah.
if you're willing to put the time and effort into it. But that comes at a real sacrifice to everything else. And those kids, that was our family vacation. Like I want to have better memories moving forward.
Yeah.
I want our kids to remember me not working. I want our kids to be like, oh my God, we like went surfing that day instead of like, she was on a phone call for an appraisal and the appraisal took too long.
But you also like in that situation too, there's such a difference. And for maybe people who can relate to this, like I can totally relate to what you're saying and what you did. It's like, there's two mindsets though that come with stopping that. There's the one that I have to stop because my kids and they need me and I'm being a bad parent. So while you stop that activity to go hang with them, internally you're stressed out and freaking out and kind of irritable and not really present because you got this thing you really need to be doing, which is like nagging at you and gnawing at you and you're just like, oh, but you try to be present, but inside you're just like, and if they do something that irritates you, you freak out.
It like triggers.
So you really have to come from a deep understanding, like you just mentioned. That way you then can let go of it and then be chill at the same time and relaxed and present and in the moment and not be like having that thing pull at you.
Yeah, and that pull was not healthy for me either.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I had an amazing opportunity. I connected with one of the best real estate agents in Whatcom County. Like, I could have killed this year if I wanted to, but I didn't want to. Bet you had Ben Kinney's Cohen group, Leo Cohen group on here. And I've gotten to do some of those really fun activities with Keller Williams. And Ben Kinney has this Ben Kinney quadrant. and it's something that I still use. Like I went to this like 1%.
I remember you telling me about that. Yeah.
It is so cool. And if Jen Lamphy watches this, she's gonna laugh. But I went to this amazing workshop for like the 1%ers because she said I was, and I was excited. But it was really great. And Ben was on stage and he was saying that every problem has a solution and you can figure it out with the 4 quadrants. And I've been calling them the Ben Kinney quadrants. And it's like, one is, do you have enough time? The other one's, do you have enough resources, like people, or do you have the right systems in place? You know, like, do you have the right like program? Are you doing the right things? And then the 4th one is, do you care? Like most of the time it's going to come down to the fact like I just don't care. And I was looking at my real estate business, and I was looking at my family, and I was looking at all of these options that I had. And I was really starting to think like, I love being in real estate and I really, really love helping all of these people. But the thing that I didn't love, like the problem that I was facing, was the fact that like I was making decisions based on my real estate schedule for my family and not vice versa.
And that might be, is that a business where you have to be flexible with your schedule because of different times to show houses? Like, why is it that you couldn't still do it?
Because I didn't have boundaries.
Okay.
And that was really what it came down to. My inability to create boundaries was not there. Like I was really intentional in the beginning of starting my business, and then I wanted to like get really big, and I wanted to grow, and I wanted to be super successful, and I wanted to have this really big bank account at the cost of my daughter.
Yeah.
And her time with me and my presence. And I did not really, at that time I was like, you know what, she will get everything she wants because I'm working really hard, and that will be enough.
Yeah.
And then that was at a time when I wasn't with my partner, and then I got an opportunity to kind of like blend these families, and I like moved in with my partner and 2 kids, and we're like this family of 5 now, and it's awesome. And that perspective shifted a lot for me, and that's when I was like, oh wait, do I want to be making decisions based around my business or my family? Like I just didn't want to have to decide. And then I was given this opportunity, which was so unplanned and very last minute, to work in real estate but on the mortgage side, where I work 9 to 5. I have way more structure built in. And because I'm somebody who is like you, who wants to just like, I love helping people. Like we were talking about Enneagrams. Like I'm an Enneagram 3, which is an overachiever, with a wing 2, which is the helper, which is not a great combination to have in real estate when you're an overachiever who needs to help everybody.
Yeah.
Like I will clean a listing for you just so you don't have to do it, because I know it might be inconveniencing. Like I go above and beyond for every single one of my clients because I think that they deserve that. But that's at the sacrifice of my family.
Yeah.
And those clients, they appreciate that, but they don't expect that from me. And I just am not the personality type to tell myself like, you have to stop here, because that's not where I feel comfortable stopping.
Because then you kind of feel like a failure. Or you
then
gave
I
up,
didn't
or you
give
quit.
you 110%. Like I didn't get into real estate to do it half-ass. I got into real estate to be the best of the best.
Yeah.
And to give those people the Baltina Valente experience.
Yeah.
And that was something that I had to just, I needed it to be reined in, I guess. And I had an opportunity to rein it in a different way by still being available and helping.
Did you love it in the moment? Like when you were working it, were you happy with it?
I love real estate still. I love, like I had a great call today with a past client. She had an issue with some permitting, and I got to call her, and like I got to like troubleshoot it, and it was so fun. And I like loved calling her and having that conversation. And I still get to have that. I just don't have to be I had the problem of being everything to everyone. And when you're the realtor, you are the hub. And it is fun to be the hub. And I love being the hub. I love being the connector. You can ask anyone in my life. Like, I will connect you. Like, I try to connect you all the time to people.
I know. I love it, though.
I love being the connector. But I also had to realize that, like, I am choosing to be a connector for the people that matter to me instead of everybody.
Yeah.
And that was really a deliberate, intentional thing moving forward into this space with my new life and my blended family, like I really had to be more intentional, and that's where I had to make that sacrifice. So when I had an opportunity to join a mortgage team, I saw it as a growth and as a new challenge, because the easy thing would have been to stay in real estate and continue to do the grind.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have set up a better structure, but I didn't really want to.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew that if I did that, I wasn't going to be happy doing my business the way I would be
How long
doing
did it take you to come to the decision to quit and move on?
About 3 days.
Wow, so fast.
It was pretty fast,
Wow.
which is why I knew I wasn't as happy as I could have been.
Interesting. So fun talking to you. I know you have to run.
Yeah.
Are you out of time?
Oh, I can talk a little bit more.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you.
Thank you.
So I know you have another engagement and family.
It's for a family.
I'm like looking at your watch and making sure.
Oh my gosh, don't do that. I do that in therapy all the time. I'm like, oh, we're up. I'm the girl. My therapist, if you're watching this, which you might be, is so funny because I'll be like, oh, our time is up.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll be like, okay. Like, I'm like, oh, no. Like, you only have this much time. Oh, like, let's just like wrap it up.
You're one of those people I could talk to forever. I do want to ask you, I want to rewind for a second though, because I'm curious, how long did you have your cupcake business for? And how long did that go on for?
A while. I met my now ex-husband during I was selling cupcakes at a farmer's market. And I actually got to cupcake for the remaining members of the Doors.
What?
And I also got cupcakes for Jewel.
No way. Stop. You met her?
I didn't get to meet her because I had to go bartend.
I would have said, screw bartending. I'm calling in sick.
Well, so the only reason I had access to the chef was because he was a regular at the bar, at
Wait, where was
this
this
dive
at?
bar in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay, and she was there performing?
Paps Riverside. She was at, and like the guy.
And she wanted vegan cupcakes.
He wanted her to have vegan cupcakes because there's some crew members.
Okay.
But it was so cool. So I did it for like 2 years, I think, is how long I had it. And then I moved here and I was like, I don't want to do all the permitting and I don't want to do all the.
Wow. And so after that business was over, where did you move on to next? Like, what was some of the...
I moved to Bellingham, Washington, and then I started working at a really cool acupuncture clinic at the front desk. And then I had an opportunity to be the bakery manager at Mount Bakery. And I was like, sweet, that sounds like something that would be really good at. Like, it was creating a position that didn't exist while also working with people who are super amazing at their job. Like, have you had Mount Bakery croissants?
I think a long time ago when I was in college, probably.
They're like the best of Bellingham, you know, like working at such an established, prestigious, like restaurant was like really appealing to me too. And then being able to help them grow and create rules and job descriptions. And I like created a color-coded binder, you know, like all that was really appealing to me because it was like running my own business, but not having all of the.
Do you think it's a fascinating thing as you... I notice with myself, you know, as I get older and just kind of self-reflect and anything, because you and I are both very intuitive types. Because even though we might have a lot of stuff going on, we're able to kind of like dig into it sometimes on our own. I think it's always interesting as I get older. I still don't know my personality as well, or like I learn things about myself that are surprising to me. Like, do you ever discover that with yourself, like your behavior and your motivation?
Daily.
It's like, wow, I wonder how many people really know themselves as well as they think. Because as you get older, maybe your priorities change, or you've had some success and failure in whatever area, and then sometimes you're like, you catch yourself maybe doing something in a social situation that you've done your whole life, and then later on that night, or even maybe weeks later or days later, you remember that conversation like, oh, that was weird, I said that. Why did I say that? And then you kind of think about it for a minute, like, oh, I did that because of fill in the blank. Like, that's really weird. And then all of a sudden you shift. Like, that personality just changes. Like, you just unlock something randomly. I always thought it was really fascinating. Because I wonder, you know, I think, you know, I'm 40 now. I think when I'm 80, who will I be? How much different? And then if we even lived longer, like if I were to 150 or 200, like how would you evolve over time? Like, what would be... Because I just look at... I mean, you can relate to this. I think most people can too, who are somewhat intuitive or self-reflective. You think of who you were 5, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, and you're a totally different human. And you think, who am I going to be like 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now? You know? And I just think it's interesting just how, I guess, all that wisdom you gain from just life, you know?
And from other people that we have the opportunity to engage with. I've learned so much in the last 2 years just from the people I've met that, like, I'm just like shocked.
Well, I'll say this, like, you've influenced me, and there's very few people ever like, and maybe you're the same way. There's very few people that can get in. Like,
Totally. Yeah,
there's
yeah,
very few. Like, I have to one think that you're on my level, and then also,
which
but
is hard.
uh,
It sounds like to like.
well, I think like because typically a lot of times when and maybe you can relate when I talk to people, I feel like most people I don't feel like have thoroughly thought or think about the things that they're saying. Like they haven't gone deep into it and have a true understanding of the things that they are talking about. A lot of talk and conversation feels very superficial, like just kind of bar talk. Like, oh yeah, you should probably go do that. It'd make you feel better. But there's other people out there then when they talk, you could
Mhm.
tell that they've thought deeply about it or it's coming from a place of knowing or understanding. And like I feel that with you. And so when you talk and I also get it with some of my other friends too, but there's not everyone who gives you advice really gets in deep. And maybe a lot of people feel that way, but then there's people who like maybe you respect or you can tell they've really thought about it or what they're saying isn't just superficial talk. It has meaning behind it. But you're one of those people.
Oh, thanks.
And it's like,
I
yeah.
try. I just don't want to fulfill that void of garbage. Like
Uh-huh.
I don't want to keep adding to the noise, I guess.
You also have a very calming voice.
Oh,
One of the things I
thanks.
noticed about you on Instagram, which I liked, is whenever you talk on your stories, it's so soothing. It's like, do you know the Calm app? Do you have you heard of that?
Yes.
You remind me of one of those because they do it with like celebrities now. I see that sponsored ads come up on Instagram with like celebrities from shows where they're doing a guided meditation and their voice is either deep or soothing. You
I
have that
do
voice.
love doing
You have a
stories,
voice.
and there's
Uh-huh.
so many of my friends who hate doing stories,
Uh-huh.
and they're like, "How do you do?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just open my phone and I just start talking."
Most people's stories I go through pretty quick, but with yours, I sit there because it's like a brain massage. It's so soothing.
I
You have
just
one of
am
those
trying
voices.
to be calm, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Like I meditate daily. I try to practice in living intentionally. I
Mhm.
think that's a big difference.
Mhm.
Maybe that's what you're seeing is like I slow down and
Mhm.
I'm trying just to be intentional with my life because we're trying to just reiterate that with our own kids and
Yeah.
like, buddy, you get one chance at this. Just like do it right.
Mhm.
Do it right and do it the way that you hope is
Yeah.
the best for you. And that's really what it's coming down to is in our older age, I'm like, you know what? Is this really what I want to be doing? Or is this something that I should be doing? And if it's a should, I immediately figure out what I
Mhm.
want.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of our life that we spend being told what to do. And it's like good for you. Like Amy Poehler says, like good for her, not for me. And
Mhm.
I hear that in my head so much
Yeah.
that I'm like, so good. That's why whenever I like would be like, you know what, I've been doing this. Like maybe it would be helpful for you. You could try it, but it might not work out.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Mhm.
Because there's so many self-help books out there that say like you have to do it this way and this is the only way of doing it. And people give up because they're like, oh shit, like that was so hard.
Yeah.
Or like it didn't work for me.
Mhm.
But like maybe there's some knowledge in there or there's like a little nugget that you can pull
Mhm.
from that to then use in your life. I just think like the all or nothing approach is just not helpful in any way.
Yeah. One of my big motivators is always I started doing this when I was like 30 or 31. Um I had gone I got out of college. I didn't want to go to grad school. I was living in Bellingham. I was super broke. I moved back in with my parents. I was like 32 years old. This is during like the 2008-9 recession where it was hard to find a job and the housing market and everything was really bad. I was like 32 years old. And, a lot of my friends I went to school with, because I finished up, I got my 2 year degree in my early 20s and then stopped and then got the last two when I was 30 around there. But all my friends were like 18, 19, 20, fresh out of high school, right into college. We all graduated. They're like in their early 20s, going to Seattle and getting corporate jobs, making like 60, 70 grand a year right
Mm-hmm.
out. And out here I am moving back home at my parents' house at the age of like 32, living in a small little room that where it's so small, there was like a futon in there. And when you rolled it out, which I would sleep on, there was no room to like stand or even walk. Tiny little room. And I lived there for 2.5 years as I built my business. But when I moved back in there, I told myself, I'm like, look, everything you've done in your life has brought you to this point. Because in life, and this is always a helpful thing, no one forces you to date the people you date, eat the food you eat, drive the car you drive, work the job you have the friends that you have. Like no one is forcing you to really do anything on a daily basis. So like if you're overweight and you're out of shape, you did that. Like no one held you down and forced you to eat that food and not go to the gym. And like if you're broke or you didn't have the money or whatever, it's because of your life choices. You chose to go to college or not, and all that stuff. And so just taking complete ownership of your life, which I had done a lot up to that point, but just to realize that no one did anything really to you in your life. Like you're just, I mean, once you became an adult, basically, right? Like your decisions have gotten you everything in your life up to this point that you currently have. And so, it's taking ownership of that. And then also in my early 30s, realizing that I would always imagine myself as like an 80 or 90-year-old person at the end of my life. And then I would always look back and think, would I regret not doing or doing what I'm doing now? And so that always made me very present with my daughter, or very present in my life, because I never, like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, I don't want to be 80 or 90 and think I never appreciated my store or the warehouse. I never really spent time with the people in my life, because I just quickly said, oh, hey, how are you? Good, good, good. I got to, and then go to work and do my thing. And so those two things in my life have been really helpful tools, as well as meditation, because I used to meditate a lot and focus on my breathing. That's probably been the most helpful tool in my life. But I just think those things are what keeps me grounded and present. And yeah, it's in the moment.
I think just a little bit of intention goes a long way.
Yeah.
Like just take like the pause. Yeah, the meditation, I think that's a huge thing that people could just add 5 minutes a day. We have a 14-year-old, and he is finding that to be a useful tool.
Yeah, it is really good. So you are now a loan officer.
I'm almost an
almost.
LO. I'm working on it. So you have to I have to do in school for it. But I have a real estate license that I'm still actively holding.
Okay.
And then I'm helping on a team right now as the transaction coordinator while I get my loan officer credentials.
And when will you be credentialed? When's the
hopefully by spring here.
Okay.
And we're moving pretty quick.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do anything slowly.
Yeah.
By any means. So yeah, I just wanted to get in kind of comfortable.
Do you ever see yourself getting into a self-help role or counseling role?
I always joke around that like when I retire, I'm gonna go and become a therapist.
It's like I feel that with you a lot. Do you feel that, Danielle? I feel that.
I think
just sitting here talking to you
therapy.
like intuitively, I feel very psychic. Like I'm imagining your life over the next however many years.
Do you think I'm gonna become a therapist?
I think at some point you're gonna slide into some sort of role like that.
I would love it. I just love talking to people. I love figuring out how they can help themselves, I think that we just have so much available to us that we already have like within ourselves. I guess it sounds like wooey, but there's so much work you can do internally with, a guided person like a therapist or like that clairvoyant healer, Cindy Sable in Bellingham here. She's been a humongous help for me. I always joke around and say like I'm not into that woo-woo stuff, but whatever Cindy's doing, like I'm all about that Kool-Aid. She's been like amazing because it's just about reflection and living so intentionally and like learning how to do that and getting the advice on that. Like I don't know, like I just don't think you need to spend $1 million on meds and whatever else people are doing. There's just so many things you can do that are free for yourself that people just don't have access to. Like they just don't have the time to really cultivate it.
Yeah.
And that's like a humongous thing that does not lost on me. I have a lot of flexibility in my schedule to have a lot of self-help time, even though I am like 3 kids, partner, full-time job, like I only have one job.
Yeah.
I only have to parent, whatever until 9 o'clock at night. I have a lot, and then I can wake up early and do the things like I have access and resources to buy like the Peloton and things like that. So like that's not lost on me that I do have some privilege to do that, but there are things that people can do that just take 5 minutes.
What do you like to do for fun? I know Peloton bike. I know you like to run. Like for you in your free time when you're not with kids or your partner, like what's your thing?
I'm like all about face masks. And getting pedicures. We just did a family pedicure for the first time.
I saw that.
And the 2 boys got they did a full thing. And we just rebooked before our trip for spring break. My friend Alicia and her family do that every time before they go on family vacation.
Oh, nice.
And we were it was a Sunday and it was rainy. We were supposed to go on a family hike, but we decided last minute to do a pedicure. And it was so fun to kind of introduce like the older boy and even Matt into like kind of what we do to take care of ourselves, and they loved it. It was great for them. And I like to just like do a really nice facial once in a while, like once every 6 weeks.
Do you have any TV shows you watch?
I would love to say that I do, but I just have not. Like, I'll watch some TV and then I kind of just get over it.
Yeah.
I just am like, what else could I be doing? I could be reading a book. Like, I'm trying to read more nonfiction books, and I just got done reading To Catch and Kill
What's that
by
about?
Ronan Farrow. It's about Weinstein allegations,
Oh,
Weinstein,
okay.
whatever. And then before that, I read this book by Jedediah Jenkins this year, which is really great. It's like a long journey home or something, or it's like I don't know. It's a good book. He rode from Oregon to Patagonia on a bike, and he's
Wow.
never been a cyclist.
Wow, that's
It was
crazy.
awesome. It was such a good book. So there's just like so many other ways to stimulate my brain besides TV. But I do love Grey's Anatomy. I've been watching that for a solid like
All like
16
19
years.
episodes
However,
or
like since I've
seasons.
been in high school, I've been like 5 episodes behind. But I also just
That's
started
commitment.
watching. Yeah, I know. And that's one of those shows where I'm like,
So
damn
much
it.
drama.
I just need to watch it because I've been watching it.
You can't give it up.
It's a show I watch because I feel like I should watch it, not because I want to watch it. It's an old habit,
Yeah.
you know.
Let me ask you this question. I'll ask you this last question. I'm curious, as you know, as you've gone through, the self-help and everything, did you have friends? I'm curious about the people you attracted in your life that were your friends, maybe when you're 19 or whatever. Was there a point when you woke up one day and you're like, oh, like this person is negative or toxic in my life?
Totally.
And what were the types of people you had in your circle? Because I had that. After this last girl I dated. I went to counseling because I was like, why is every girl I date like exactly the same?
We kind of talked about that.
Yeah, I'm like, what's going on? I was totally unaware of the fact of in my counselor, we went through all the girls I had dated, and she's like, well, there's a red flag there, and like every girl was like all these red flags really early on. That just seemed like normal human behavior to me.
Because that's something you had learned.
Yeah, and I was completely oblivious, and we did EMDR and went back through all the childhood trauma and all that stuff. And then I had 3 friends I'd been friends with for like 16 years, where all of a sudden I realized, oh, this is not just romantic relationships. Like I have people, like friends,
Toxic.
who are just toxic and negative, and I started to feel almost anxiety talking to them on the phone that I never felt before, because all of a sudden I had gone through therapy and gotten over a lot of shit, and I realized, oh, and I literally quit talking to all 3 of them, just cold turkey, didn't even say anything. Of course, they tried to contact me, like, what? Call me and text me, like, just done.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you had similar experiences
I
to that.
did. And it's interesting because I actually had a friend reach out to me. She is not one of the friends that I did stop talking to, but she had a similar parallel backstory and said, like, how did you get to where you are right now? And I like just said, like, therapy, Cindy Sable, work on yourself.
Yeah.
And like that's really what happened. And then I was thinking back, like, wow, like that really is all I did. And then I was thinking back to like her and then how I hadn't talked to her. And then I was like, I haven't talked to like these people either. And it wasn't so much that I think it was a choice to actively like not participate in a relationship with them. It was just a choice to spend more energy and intentionality towards the people that were bringing what I wanted in my life in. So I think that it kind of naturally happened that way. And I've always had a pretty small group of friends anyways.
Yeah.
Even though what my small group of friends is probably not most small people. Like it's probably pretty big. I do this thing where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm friends with this person and this person. Like they must be friends. Because I've like we're friends, so like they're friends. Like it just that makes sense to me. But I used to do a lot more like dinner parties and stuff like that, and I would see a lot more of those friends. But now I'm definitely doing more one-on-one and just being really more intentional on spending time with those people that I want to spend time with.
Yeah, that was been a big focus to me. Like I did like the purge, where I just like these friends gone, and then I'm like now I'm really focused on just having good friends in my circle, and just like also spending more time socializing, which as an introvert I don't do a lot of. I'm trying to focus more on that. I follow Ben Greenfield on Instagram. I don't know if anyone knows who he is, but he's a really popular guy. You can follow him. Him and his wife, kids live out in Eastern Washington. But he had a really great post on Instagram this morning about, he's all about like longevity and lifestyle. He's like the leading guy on it and knows all about the stuff. And he was listed like 5 things that have been shown to like increase longevity. And one of the things he does with his family is every, I think, morning they have gratitude journals where they talk about gratitude. He talked about having some sort of religion or spiritual practice. having like meaning in your life of like why.
Your why.
Yeah.
Your
Which,
why.
yeah, that was, I'm gonna have to unravel that one. And then there was two others which I don't remember.
Like exercise, maybe drinking water.
Oh, no, he said socializing was one. He goes, even if that means you have to stay up later than you normally would, or you would wind up eating late at night or drinking late at night. He goes, the socializing will outweigh the negative effects of you not getting enough sleep that night and messing up your circadian rhythm and like eating a meal late at night. He goes, the social benefits. It's not talking about like partying and getting hammered.
We're social creatures.
Yeah.
Like you want to be seen by other people.
Yeah.
Like that's what we are innately developed to be.
So it says like making time for those social, like making that a priority over, oh, my bedtime is, I got to go to bed. I can't make that thing. He goes, the negative aspects of you not getting enough sleep are going to be way more outweighed. Because you talk about the people in the green, was it the green zone or whatever? Like the people that live over 100 years in whatever part of the world that is. I think it's over in Japan or whatever.
Yeah, it is like the octogenarians.
Yeah, they studied them, and only like 5 people like weren't having like a religious spiritual practice. He goes, so have some sort of spiritual practice, but the socializing aspect, he's like, it's worth it if you don't get enough sleep to go do like, so this like incorporating these things are good for your mental health and longevity. And so,
and it's just like good to get out of your head. It like gives you a break from your brain,
yeah, if
anything else.
Yeah, we'll wrap this up. Do you still bake?
I still bake.
All right, expect some cupcakes. All right, thank you. That was great.
That was so fun.